She betrayed me with him. Now she's pregnant, and I've taken everything she loved. My name is Ethan. I'm 35 now, but this story begins 3 years ago when I thought I had everything a man could want. A wife, Laura, 33, with auburn hair that caught the light like a flame and eyes that could convince you the world was kind. A home we'd spent years turning into ours, every wall painted, every floorboard chosen together. A life I'd carved out with my hands and my heart. I'm not a sentimental guy, but I believed in us. I believed in her. That was my first mistake. We met in our late 20s, at a mutual friend's wedding. She spilled champagne on my shirt, laughed, and offered to buy me a drink instead of apologizing. I liked that, her boldness, her unpolished charm. 2 years later, we were married. Another 2, and we were talking kids, a dog, the whole suburban dream. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, cracks were forming long before I saw them. Laura worked as a graphic designer, freelancing from home, while I ran a small construction company. Business was good, steady contracts, loyal crew. I'd come home dusty and tired, and she'd greet me with a glass of wine and a smile. Routine, sure, but it was ours. Until it wasn't. It started with the late nights. She'd say she was on a deadline, hunched over her laptop in the spare room we'd turned into her office. I didn't mind, work was work. But then came the phone call she'd take outside, her voice low, her laughter muffled through the glass. I asked once, casually, "Who's that?" She waved it off. "Client. Fussy one. You know how it is." I nodded, because I trusted her. That was my second mistake. The real fracture came 6 months ago. We'd been trying for a kid, nothing clinical yet, just the old-fashioned way. She'd been eager at first, tracking cycles, teasing me about doing my part. But lately, she'd grown distant. The teasing stopped. The late nights grew longer. I chalked it up to stress. Her business was picking up, and I was neck-deep in a new project, a strip mall on the edge of town. We were busy. That's all it was. Or so I told myself. Then, one Tuesday, I came home early. A supplier had canceled, and I figured I'd surprise her, maybe cook dinner, crack open a bottle of that Pinot she liked. The house was quiet when I walked in, the kind of quiet that hums with absence. Her car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the kitchen, the living room, her office. I called her name. Nothing. I climbed the stairs, my boots heavy on the hardwood we'd refinished together. The bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open and froze. There she was, on our bed, tangled in the sheets with a man I didn't recognize. His shirt was on the floor, her hands in his hair. The world tilted. I don't know how long I stood there, seconds, minutes, before she saw me. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. He scrambled up, fumbling for his jeans, muttering something I didn't hear over the roar in my head. "Ethan," she started, but I turned and walked out. Not a word, not a shout, just silence. I didn't trust myself to speak. I drove to a bar on the edge of town, a dive with sticky floors and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. I sat there, nursing a whiskey, replaying every moment of the last 5 years. Every smile, every promise. How long had it been a lie? Who was he? Did it even matter? She texted me an hour later. "I'm so sorry. Please come home. We need to talk." I didn't reply. Another hour, another text. It was a mistake. I swear it won't happen again. I turned my phone off. A mistake. Like spilling coffee on a blueprint, not fucking someone else in our bed. I didn't go home that night. I crashed at my foreman's place, Jake, a guy who'd been with me since the company started. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and pointed to the couch. The next morning, I went back. She was waiting, red-eyed, her hair a mess. She launched into it the second I walked in. "Ethan, I messed up. I was lonely. You're always working, and I just, Mark's a friend. It got out of hand. I love you. Please, let's fix this." Mark. So that was his name. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't know. "How long?" I asked, my voice flat. She hesitated. "A few months. But it's over now, I promise." "Get out," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Pack your shit and get out." "Ethan, this is my house too." "Not anymore." I walked past her, grabbed a duffel from the closet, and started throwing her clothes in. She cried, begged, followed me around like a ghost. I didn't stop. When the bag was full, I dropped it at her feet and opened the front door. She left, sobbing, clutching the duffel like it was all she had left. Maybe it was. Divorce was the obvious move, but it wasn't enough. She'd taken something from me, my trust, my pride, my future, and walking away wouldn't settle the score. I needed her to feel what I felt. I needed her to lose everything she thought she owned. So I started planning. First, I called my lawyer, Sarah. She's a sharp, no-nonsense. The kind of woman who'd chew through red tape like it was tissue paper. I laid it out. The affair, the betrayal, the house. She nodded, scribbling notes. Prenup? She asked. No, I said. But the house is in my name. I bought it before we married. Good. That's a start. Assets. Joint savings, my business, her car. I paid for it. Sarah tapped her pen. If she files first, she'll push for half. We need to move fast. Protect your business, liquidate what you can, and get her off anything shared. Proof of infidelity helps, but it's not a golden ticket in a no-fault state. I nodded. I'll get proof. Next, I dug into Mark. It wasn't hard. Laura wasn't as clever as she thought. Her laptop was still in her office, password unchanged. I found emails, texts, photos. Mark Tanner, 36, a personal trainer with a gym downtown. They'd met at a networking event she'd gone to last year. The messages went back months, flirty at first, then explicit. Dates, times, places, including my house, my bed. I printed everything. Then I wiped the laptop and locked it in my safe. She'd left her keys behind, another mistake. I changed the locks that afternoon. For 2 weeks, I played the part. She called, texted, showed up at the house once, banging on the door. I didn't answer. Let her think I was broken, reeling. Meanwhile, I dismantled our life piece by piece. I drained our joint accounts, $500,000, mostly mine from the business, and moved it to a new one she couldn't touch. The car? Repossessed. I'd kept the title in my name, a detail she'd never noticed. Her design clients? I emailed them anonymously from a burner account, attaching screenshots of her affair, suggesting she was unreliable. Petty, maybe, but effective. Her inbox lit up with cancellations. The house was trickier. She'd argue it was marital property, even if I'd bought it. So I got creative. I called Jake. Need a favor? Big one. He raised an eyebrow. This about Laura? Yeah. I'm selling the house. Fast. Can you handle it? He whistled. You sure? It's not home anymore. He nodded. I know a guy flips properties. Cash deal, no questions. When? Yesterday. Within a week, the house was gone, sold below market to a guy who didn't care about its history. I pocketed the cash and rented a condo across town. Laura didn't know yet. She'd find out soon enough. Then there was Mark. I tracked him down. His gym was a sleek, overpriced place with too many mirrors. I walked in, signed up for a trial session under a fake name. He was all charm, clapping me on the back, showing off his biceps. I smiled, nodded, waited. During a break, I slipped into his office, unlocked, sloppy, and planted a USB drive with the affair emails. I tipped off his boss anonymously. By the next day, he was out of a job. Small victory, but it felt good. The final blow came on a Friday. Laura had been crashing at a friend's place, still calling, still pleading. I agreed to meet her neutral ground, a coffee shop downtown. She looked wrecked, pale, hair limp, eyes hollow. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Ethan, thank you for coming, she said, voice trembling. I know I hurt you. I'll do anything to make it right. I sipped my coffee, let her talk. She rambled, apologies, excuses, promises. I recorded it all on my phone, tucked in my pocket. Then I slid an envelope across the table. What's this? She asked, frowning. Open it. She did. Divorce papers, asset division, everything in my favor, and a letter from my lawyer detailing her infidelity, the house sale, the car. Her hand shook as she read, her breath hitching. You sold the house, she whispered. Last week. Our savings. Mine now. The car. Gone. She stared at me, tears welling. You can't do this. I'll fight it. I'll get a lawyer. Go ahead, I said, leaning back. You've got no proof, no money, and no credibility. Your clients dropped you. Mark's unemployed. You're alone. Her face crumpled. Ethan, please. You built this, I said, standing. Live in it. I walked out, her sobs fading behind me. The divorce went through a month later clean, uncontested. She had nothing left to fight with. The judge didn't blink at the evidence, emails, texts, her own recorded confession. I kept the business, the money, my life. She got silence. I'm in the condo now, a sparse place with a view of the city. No memories of her here. The crew still calls me boss. The contracts keep coming. I don't look back. Laura's gone, last I heard. She moved out of state, chasing a fresh start she'll never find. Mark's a ghost too, probably flexing for tips at some hole-in-the-wall gym. Revenge doesn't fix everything. The anger's still there, a low burn I carry like a tool in my belt. But I'm free. I tore down the life she ruined and built something new. And this time, it's mine alone.